Sometimes life doesn't change slowly, not through months of effort, not through years of waiting, not through all the promises we make to ourselves and break one by one. Sometimes everything changes in one single, unexpected, unbelievable moment. A moment that shakes you, a moment that wakes you, a moment that forces you to see life differently. Some people call it fate, some call it destiny, some call it coincidence. But for Ayla, it was a moment that arrived on an ordinary morning, a morning that began like every other one in her quiet, struggling life. She didn't know that a single second would change the direction of her future forever. This is the story of that moment. A moment that reminded her that life is fragile, time is short, and the world can shift in the blink of an eye. This is the story of how she broke free from the life she thought she was trapped in. This is the story of how one moment turned everything around. Part 1. Sometimes life changes in one moment. The morning began the same way it always did for Ayla, with the sharp metallic sound of her alarm slicing through the silence of her small apartment. She had grown so used to that sound that she no longer woke up startled. It was familiar, predictable, a reminder that nothing in her life had changed in a long time. Her hand reached out automatically, slapping the alarm clock off. She lay there for a few seconds, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. The early sunlight pressed weakly through the curtains, making faint lines on her walls. The air felt heavy, as if the room itself was tired. Ayla took a deep breath. Another day, another routine, another step in the same direction she'd been walking for years. She pulled herself up slowly. Her body felt heavier than usual, as if the weight of her thoughts had soaked into her bones during the night. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed and sat there for a moment, elbows on her knees, palms pressed against her eyes. She whispered to herself, "I don't know how long I can keep doing this." The truth she never said out loud was simple. She felt stuck, completely stuck. She wasn't miserable. She wasn't suffering. She wasn't broken. She was just drifting. Ayla worked as an assistant at a small administrative office downtown. It wasn't a bad job, but it wasn't exciting either. It paid the bills, kept her schedule full, and at least gave her a routine. But lately, even routine felt heavy. The days blended together until she couldn't tell Monday from Thursday. She stood up, tied her hair back into a loose ponytail, and walked into the kitchen. The floor was cold under her feet. She opened the cupboard and took out the same brown coffee mug she'd used every morning for 3 years. The chipped corner on the rim stared back at her like a tiny reminder of how life wears everything down with time. The kettle hissed. Steam began to curl upward. She poured the hot water and watched the dark color bloom through the coffee like ink spreading across paper. For a moment, she wished she could dissolve just as easily, blend into something new, something different. As she sat down at the small table by the window, she picked up her phone. Another habit, another routine. No new messages, no missed calls, no notifications from friends because she hadn't kept in touch with any. She took a slow sip of coffee and stared out the window. The sky was pale, the kind of color that made the world look tired. Cars hummed along the street. People rushed to work. A jogger ran past in a bright neon jacket. Everything looked alive except her. She sighed and whispered to herself, "Just get through the day." When she finally stepped outside, a chilly breeze brushed across her face. She pulled her jacket closer and began the short walk to the bus stop. The sidewalk was sprinkled with fallen leaves, the last remains of autumn clinging stubbornly to the season. Ayla walked with her head slightly down. She wasn't sad, just deep in thought, disconnected from the world around her. She heard footsteps of people behind her, the distant rumble of a truck, a dog barking from behind a fence. But nothing felt real enough to pull her out of her thoughts. When she reached the intersection, she stopped and stood among a small crowd of morning commuters, waiting for the pedestrian light to turn green. She checked her phone again. A habit, a distraction, a way to avoid facing the quiet emptiness inside her. Behind her, someone sighed impatiently. To her left, a man adjusted his tie. A teenage girl scrolled on her phone. A mother held her child's hand. Life moved around her, but she felt like she wasn't part of it, just a floating observer. The light was still red. Cars streamed past. She wondered, not for the first time, if anything meaningful would ever happen to her. Something big, something powerful, something that would remind her why she was here, alive, breathing. She didn't know she was seconds away from getting her answer. At exactly 8:17 a.m., it happened. The moment, the one she would never forget. Ayla looked up at the traffic light, which was still red, and then glanced down again at her phone. A message banner flashed across her screen from a promotional app she never used. Her thumb hovered, her mind elsewhere, her foot shifting forward without realizing it. Just one small step. Her shoe moved half an inch over the edge of the curb. She didn't hear the sound of the speeding car until it was too late. A roar, a flash, a blinding movement, a metallic scream of tires tearing across the asphalt. Someone behind her gasped. Before Ayla could even register what was happening, she felt a strong grip on her upper arm, firm, urgent, unmistakably intentional. She was yanked backwards so hard she stumbled. The car shot past her so close that the wind of its speed slapped against her face and whipped her hair aside. The entire world seemed to freeze for a second. The sound of the car fading into the distance was drowned by the pounding of her heartbeat exploding in her ears. Her phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the pavement. Ayla couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. Her body shook uncontrollably as she stared at the spot where she would have been standing, where she would have been struck, where her life would have ended, if not for one hand, one moment, one person. She slowly turned, heart thudding painfully, and saw the woman who had saved her. She was elderly, with silver hair pulled neatly into a bun and warm brown eyes that seemed strangely calm for the intensity of what had just happened. She wore a beige coat and held a small handbag. Her face was soft, lined gently with age, but her gaze was sharp, almost knowing. The woman looked at her, not with fear, not with panic, but with a strange, quiet understanding, and said in a voice that felt like an echo from somewhere far away, "Dear child, sometimes life gives you a warning. Don't ignore it." Her voice was calm, almost comforting, as if she had been waiting to say those words. Ayla's lips parted, but no words came out. She tried to speak, tried to breathe, tried to understand, but shock silenced everything. People around them murmured, "Did you see that car? She almost died. Crazy driver. Is she okay?" But Ayla didn't hear them clearly. Everything was muffled, distant, underwater. Her focus stayed on the woman. The woman gave her a small, knowing smile. Then, without waiting for thanks, she gently released Ayla's arm, turned, and began to walk away. Ayla blinked, stunned. "Wait," she managed to whisper. But the woman was already moving through the crowd, each step steady, calm, almost graceful. She didn't look back. Ayla watched her disappear into the morning rush, swallowed by the city. She wanted to chase her, ask her name, thank her, understand what happened. But her own legs felt too weak to move. Her breathing came out uneven, shaky. She picked up her phone from the ground with trembling hands. She was alive. She shouldn't have been, but she was. And something inside her shifted. A small, powerful realization. Life can end in a second, and she had been wasting hers. Her chest tightened with a mix of fear and clarity. The moment, the single moment, echoed through her body. 8:17 a.m. 1 second, one step, one stranger, and everything changed. Ayla didn't take the bus that morning. She couldn't. Her mind couldn't process the idea of going through her routine as if nothing had happened. She walked instead, slowly at first, then faster as the shock slowly melted into a strange, uncomfortable awareness. Her hands still shook. She kept glancing around as if expecting the car to return, as if the world had suddenly become sharper, brighter, louder. The city looked different. People looked different. Everything felt different. She felt the sun warmth on her face, something she usually never noticed. She heard the chirping of birds from a tree she passed every day but never really saw. She smelled the faint scent of a bakery nearby. Everything was the same, yet she felt like she was seeing it for the first time. She whispered to herself, "I could have died." The words came out raw, heavy, real. Her throat tightened, not because she felt fear, but because she felt something else. Regret. Deep, overwhelming regret. Regret for everything she hadn't done, every dream she had abandoned, every day she had lived without meaning, every moment she had wasted as if she had forever. Her steps slowed. She sat on a bench at the corner of a quiet street, gripping the edge of the seat to stop her hands from trembling. Her heart was still racing, but slowly her breathing started to steady. A few tears slid down her cheeks. Silent, unexpected. She wasn't crying because she almost died. She was crying because she realized she hadn't truly been living. The moment that almost ended her life had awakened something inside her. A fierce, urgent, undeniable truth. She wanted more. More than routine, more than survival, more than the small, confined life she had accepted. She wanted to live with purpose, with intention, with passion. The old woman's voice echoed in her mind again. Sometimes life gives you a warning. Don't ignore it. Ayla wiped her tears. She whispered to herself, I won't. And she meant it. Deeply, truly, completely. This was the moment her life began to change. Not slowly, not over years, but right now, in a single, unforgettable moment. Part 2. Sometimes life changes in one moment. Ayla remained on the bench longer than she expected. The world around her moved normally. Cars passed, people walked, a dog barked somewhere, but she felt separated from it all, as if she were sitting behind a thin glass wall. Everything looked slightly blurred, slightly distant. Her mind replayed the moment again and again. The sound of the car, the force pulling her arm, the woman's voice. It didn't feel real. It felt like something from a dream, something symbolic, something meant to shake her awake. Finally, when her heartbeat returned to its normal rhythm, Ayla stood up. The wind brushed past her, carrying the faint scent of rain, even though the sky was still clear. She wrapped her jacket tighter around herself and turned toward a direction she never usually took. Not toward work, not toward home, not toward anywhere familiar. Her body moved almost on its own, guided by a feeling she couldn't name yet. She needed time. She needed space. She needed to understand what the moment meant. She walked without a destination. Each step felt strange, lighter and yet heavier with meaning. She crossed blocks she had never paid attention to before, noticing details she had always ignored. The chipped paint on an old shop sign, a cat napping in the sun, a man sweeping the sidewalk in front of a bakery. The city was alive. And for the first time in a long time, she felt alive too. After nearly an hour of wandering, she found herself near a park she hadn't visited since she first moved to the city. Back then, she used to come there full of hope. She would sit on the grass with a notebook and plan her future. Jobs she wanted, dreams she believed in, places she swore she would travel. But life had swallowed all of that, slowly, quietly, without her realizing. Ayla walked through the park gate. The air felt fresher there. The trees whispered softly as the breeze moved through them. Children ran across the grass. An older man fed pigeons near a fountain. A young couple laughed while sharing a drink. Life everywhere. She sat on a wooden bench and closed her eyes for a moment. She could have died today. The thought slipped through her mind again, both sharp and soft, both terrifying and strangely comforting, because death, almost touching it, had shown her how much she hadn't lived. Her eyes opened and she pulled her phone from her pocket, not out of habit this time, but with intention. She opened the Notes app and started typing, fingers trembling slightly. What do I want from my life? It felt like an impossible question, but she waited. She breathed. She listened to herself. Slowly, she began typing answers. I want to feel proud of myself. I want to stop feeling trapped. I want to create something. I want a life that feels meaningful. I want to stop waiting. She stared at the list. It looked small, simple, but it felt huge. A tear slipped down her cheek, not of sadness, but of understanding. For the first time, she was honest with herself. A soft voice pulled her out of her thoughts. Are you all right? Ayla looked up and saw an older man standing in front of her. He seemed gentle, his face lined with age, but his eyes warm. He wore a wool scarf and carried a bag of breadcrumbs for the birds. Ayla hesitated before answering. Yes, I think so. You were staring very intently at your screen, he said with a small smile. Looked like you were trying to solve the world's problems. Ayla let out a soft, shaky laugh. Just my own. Ah, the man nodded, sitting on the bench a respectful distance away. Those are usually harder. She didn't know why, but his presence felt comforting. Safe. Familiar somehow. Maybe because he reminded her of her grandfather. Maybe because today felt like a day full of unexpected people. Do you come here often? She asked politely. He smiled. Every morning. This park is my thinking place. He paused, then added, everyone needs a place where they can hear their own heart. Ayla inhaled deeply. That's exactly why I'm here, she admitted. The man nodded as if he already knew. Something happened today, something big. Ayla stiffened. How? How did you know? He chuckled softly. My dear, I'm old. I've lived long enough to see when a person's soul is trembling. Ayla swallowed hard. His words hit her deeper than he probably intended. She looked down at her hands. I almost got hit by a car this morning. Her voice cracked slightly. It was so close. I didn't even see it coming. The man didn't react with shock. Instead, he nodded slowly, thoughtfully. And you're not frightened now. You're changed. He wasn't asking. He was stating a truth. Ayla blinked, surprised. How can you tell? Because near death, it shakes something loose inside us, he said gently. It makes us see what we ignore. It makes us question everything. It wakes us up. He tore a piece of bread and threw it lightly to the pigeons. My wife used to say, he continued, that life whispers, then it speaks, then it shouts. And if we still don't listen, it shakes us. Ayla felt her breath catch. Life whispers, then speaks, then shouts, then shakes you. That's exactly what she felt. She whispered, I think today was my shake. The old man smiled softly. Then don't waste it. Most people go back to sleep after a moment like that. Don't be one of them. Ayla looked at him, really looked at him. There was kindness in his face, but also wisdom. She wondered if he had gone through something similar once. Something that changed him. Something that taught him what he just told her. Thank you, she said sincerely. You're welcome, he replied. Then he stood up slowly, joints cracking slightly. Remember, the moment is a gift. What you do next is your responsibility. With that, he tipped his head politely and walked away, birds fluttering beside him. Isla watched him go. Two strangers in one day, both saying words she needed to hear, both arriving at the exact moment she needed them. She didn't believe in signs before, but today she wasn't so sure. Ayla sat in the park for another hour. She wrote more notes, more thoughts, more fears, more hopes. She let her mind unravel gently, slowly, freely. Her life didn't make sense yet, but for the first time, she wasn't scared of that. She was curious. Eventually, she stood up, feeling lighter somehow, and walked toward a small cafe near the park entrance. The inside was warm and smelled of fresh pastries and cinnamon. Soft music played. People chatted quietly. She ordered a tea and sat by the window. She took a deep breath. She opened a blank page on her phone, and she wrote a title, The Life I Want. For a few seconds, she didn't write anything else. Her mind searched for words, for clarity, for a beginning. Finally, she typed the first line. I want to live a life that feels like mine. Her eyes burned with fresh tears, not from sadness, but from truth. She continued writing. I want to wake up excited. I want to stop being afraid of change. I want to be proud of who I become. I want to love myself. I want to create something meaningful. She paused, then added, and I want to start today. Her fingers trembled as she wrote the last line. It felt like a promise, a declaration, a decision. When she put her phone down, her tea had grown slightly cold, but her heart felt warm. Ayla looked out the window at the world outside. The busy street, the bicycles passing, the people talking as they walked. Everything looked possible. Everything looked new. Everything looked like a beginning. For the first time in years, she felt hope. Not the weak, quiet kind, The strong, stubborn kind. The kind that whispers, "You still have time." She didn't know what her next step would be. She didn't know where this new feeling would lead her. But she knew one thing for sure. The moment this morning didn't just scare her, it awakened her, and she was ready to listen. Part 3. The Weight of the Moment. For the first time in weeks, the world felt still. Maya stood at the glass doors of the small hospital cafe, holding a cup of coffee. She wasn't actually drinking, staring at the dim sky outside. It was early, too early for visitors, too late for the night shift, and everything around her seemed suspended between exhaustion and awakening. She never knew a single moment could stretch itself so wide, swallowing days, swallowing everything she used to be. But life had changed, and it wasn't done changing. The quiet. After the chaos, the night before still pulsed in her mind like a bruise she kept pressing. The screech of tires. The sudden shove from a stranger. The pain in her leg. The ambulance lights flashing like broken stars. And the face of the man who saved her. A stranger with steady hands, a calm voice, and eyes that held a story. Liam Hart. A name she didn't know she would repeat 1,000 times in her mind before sunrise. Maya rubbed her forehead and sighed. She didn't understand why he stayed in the hospital lobby all night. He wasn't responsible for her. He didn't even know her. Yet he remained, silent, alert, as if guarding something he could not name. Maybe he was running from something, or maybe she reminded him of something, or someone. Life-changing moments often bring people together in ways logic can't explain. A stranger who waited. When Maya left the cafe and limped back to her room, she found him there, still, quiet, unmoved by hours. He sat in a plastic chair outside her door, head tilted back against the wall, arms crossed, a jacket over his lap. His eyes were closed, but his posture wasn't relaxed. It was guarded, like someone who had learned long ago that even sleep had to be monitored. Maya approached slowly. "You stayed," she whispered, almost surprised at her own voice. Liam opened his eyes immediately, as if he wasn't really asleep at all. "You shouldn't walk alone," he said, standing up. "I was just downstairs. You were limping." Maya blinked. "I'm okay, really." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her face, scanning for pain, or maybe proof that she was telling the truth. His concern wasn't intrusive. It was strange, quiet, and strangely familiar, as if he had spent years protecting people who didn't know they needed protecting. "Are you okay?" she asked. Liam stiffened. The question seemed to catch him off guard. "I'm fine." But his eyes told a different story. The moment that broke him. Later that morning, while a nurse checked Maya's bandage, Liam stepped outside. She knew he would return. His presence felt like a promise. a silent one he didn't even know he had made. An hour passed, then two. Maya pushed herself to sit upright and tried to distract her mind with the hospital television, but nothing worked. There was a strange pull toward Liam, an instinct not romantic, not dramatic, just human. Something was wrong with him, and she could feel it. When he finally came back, his eyes looked different, darker, hollowed, like he had walked through a memory he didn't want to revisit. "Where did you go?" she asked softly. He didn't answer. Instead, he sat in the chair by her bed, elbows on his knees, fingers interlocked. A posture of someone who carried something heavy but didn't know how to set it down. "You don't have to stay," she said gently. "You already helped me. More than you had to." Liam breathed deeply. It wasn't a choice. "What do you mean?" He looked up at her, and there was something raw in his gaze, something breaking through the walls he had built. "I couldn't let what happened to you happen again." Again. One word. A door opening. Maya's heartbeat slowed. "You lost someone," she whispered. He closed his eyes. "I should have saved her," he said, "but I didn't." The air in the room shifted, heavy, aching, filled with the echo of a story not yet told. Maya didn't speak. She didn't ask. She simply listened with her silence. And sometimes silence is the only language pain understands. The name he couldn't forget. "It was 3 years ago," Liam said quietly. Maya didn't move, afraid that even breathing too loudly would make him shut down. She was walking home from her shift. A truck ran the light. I was there, close enough to stop it, close enough to see her fall, close enough to... His voice cracked, but not close enough to save her. The muscles in his jaw tightened. "Mia," he whispered, the name fragile as glass. "My little sister." Maya's chest tightened. He had carried this alone. Every day, every step, every quiet night when guilt became louder than the world. And yesterday, when he saw Maya in danger, his body reacted before his mind even had the chance. Because in his heart, he was still trying to save Mia. "I'm so sorry," Maya whispered. "You don't have to be." His voice was low, controlled. "Just don't thank me for saving you. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because I couldn't." He swallowed. Lose someone like that again. There it was, the truth hidden behind his steady hands and silent presence. He wasn't just a stranger. He was a man fighting ghosts. When two broken moments meet. The day passed slowly, but the heaviness between them didn't feel uncomfortable. In some strange way, their shared silence felt like a bridge, a fragile one, but enough to stand on. In the afternoon, Maya's doctor came in. "You'll need crutches for a few days," he said. "And rest. No unnecessary walking." "She won't walk alone," Liam replied immediately. The doctor blinked. "Are you her relative?" "No." Maya said quickly. Just someone who helped. But the doctor only nodded, reassured. Sometimes compassion is more convincing than blood. After he left, Maya looked at Liam. You don't have to take care of me. I know. Then why are you doing it? He hesitated, then spoke with honesty that felt like an exhale. Because you're the first person I've been able to help in a long time. Maya felt something shift inside her. Not pity, not obligation, something softer. Something that felt like understanding, connection, and the quiet beginning of trust. People often think life changes in dramatic events, but sometimes life changes in a simple exchange of truths between two wounded hearts. A sunset they didn't expect. Later, when visiting hours ended, a nurse offered to take Maya downstairs for fresh air. Liam stepped forward before she finished the sentence. I'll take her. Maya rolled her eyes but smiled. You don't listen much, do you? Not when it comes to safety. The nurse smiled. He's a good one. Liam looked like he wanted to deny it, but Maya didn't let him. Outside, the sky was painted with soft shades of pink and orange. The air was cool, carrying the scent of wet grass and the distant hum of the city. Maya leaned on her crutches while Liam walked beside her, timing his steps to match her slower pace. You can walk ahead, she teased. I'm not going to fall dramatically in slow motion. You'd be surprised. She laughed, a real laugh. The first since the accident. And he looked at her. The kind of look someone gives when they haven't heard laughter in a long time. 2. Different paths, one shared. Present. They stopped near a bench at the edge of the garden. Maya lowered herself slowly, and Liam sat beside her, not too close, but close enough that she could feel the quiet warmth of his presence. You know, Maya began, staring at the sky. I always believed nothing ever happens out of nowhere, like everything has a meaning. Every meeting, every moment. And you think yesterday had meaning? She looked at him with soft certainty. Yes, I do. Liam didn't answer immediately. His gaze shifted between the sunset and her, measuring, thinking, absorbing. What about you? She asked. Do you believe moments can change everything? He breathed in deeply. I believe one moment can break you, he said quietly. But I'm starting to think another moment can save you too. Maya's heart stilled because she understood exactly what he meant. The beginning of the turning point. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Maya felt something she hadn't felt since the accident. Hope. Fragile. Small, but real. She looked at Liam, the man who saved her life, the man who couldn't save the person he loved the most, a stranger who carried pain in silence, a stranger who stayed, a stranger who might not stay a stranger forever. She didn't know what tomorrow held. She didn't know how long their paths would remain intertwined. But she knew one thing. Sometimes life really does change in one moment. And sometimes that moment is a person. Part 4: The Choices We Make. The night settled softly over the city, but Maya couldn't sleep. Not really. She lay in her hospital bed, the faint hum of machines beside her the only sound, her thoughts spinning faster than her pulse. It wasn't just the car accident that haunted her, it was the weight of what had happened after. The strangers who had entered her life, the sudden awareness of mortality, and the gnawing question she couldn't shake: what now? Reflections in the dark, Maya turned on the small desk lamp beside her bed and stared at the ceiling. She replayed the events of the day: the crash, the pull from the unknown woman, Liam's calm eyes in the hospital lobby, his quiet admission about his sister. She realized something. All these people, all these strangers had become part of her story in just a few hours. And maybe that was the point of life-changing moments. They weren't about a single event. They were about what followed, about the choices we make after the world shakes us awake. Maya had spent years drifting, years letting routine dictate her life, years avoiding risks, dreams, and truths. And yet, in one morning, everything had shifted. Liam's confession. The door creaked open and Liam stepped inside quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. "I didn't know if you'd want company," he said softly. Maya shook her head. "I'm glad you came." He placed a cup beside her bed. Steam rose in soft curls. "Why are you really here?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. Liam sat in the chair across from her, folding his hands over his knees. His eyes, always guarded, softened slightly. I I couldn't leave after what happened," he admitted. "It wasn't just saving you. It was something I needed to do. Something I owed my sister." Maya didn't respond immediately. She felt the weight of his words. He carried guilt and love in equal measure, and it was raw and human. "I understand," she whispered. "I've been carrying my own regret, just in different ways." A silence followed. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of acknowledgement, of shared pain, of the kind of connection that doesn't need forced conversation. The first step toward change. Over the next few days, Maya realized she didn't want to return to her old life. The morning incident had awakened something inside her, a sense of urgency, clarity, and determination. Her first step was small but significant. She called her boss and requested a week off. Work, mundane as it was, had consumed her without offering purpose. She needed to think. She needed to breathe. She needed to plan. Liam, ever silent but observant, supported her in small ways, fetching water, holding her crutches steady, and sometimes just sitting with her. One afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the hospital window, Maya opened her notebook and began listing her dreams again. This time, the list was longer, more daring, more honest. travel alone for the first time, enroll in a creative writing workshop, start a blog, reconnect with old friends, learn to live without fear. Each item on the page felt like a small rebellion against her old passive life, a subtle threat. Just as she began to feel empowered, a subtle unease entered her days. The day she was discharged, Maya noticed a car parked across the street from her apartment. The driver didn't move. There was no familiar face inside. Her chest tightened. She tried to ignore it, telling herself it was paranoia, that she was imagining danger. But her instincts, sharpened after the morning incident, refused to be silenced. That evening, when she opened the door to her apartment, she noticed a small folded note on the mat. Be careful, not everything is as it seems. Her hands shook. She looked around, then carefully pocketed the note. For the first time in her life, fear wasn't just a vague background sensation. It was real, immediate, and unnerving. She considered calling the police but hesitated. The note didn't indicate immediate danger. It was a warning, subtle, purposeful. Maya's heart pounded, but beneath the fear, a spark of determination ignited. If life could change in one moment, she thought, so could courage. Liam returns. The next morning, Liam appeared at her door. Did you see the note? He asked without preamble. Maya nodded. Yes, Sahai. How did you know? I've been following a pattern, he said quietly. Some people in this city, they notice things, but they don't always know the danger until it's too late. I saw the car yesterday and I had a feeling. Maya stared at him. His quiet calm, once comforting, now seemed infused with a new intensity. You're not exaggerating, are you? She asked. No, he said simply. Life is fragile. One wrong moment, one careless step, it can destroy everything. She looked down at her hands. She was scared, yes, but she also felt alive. She was learning that being aware, being alive, and being courageous didn't cancel out fear. It embraced it. The decision. Later that day, Maya walked to the park near her apartment. It had become her sanctuary, a place to think, to breathe, to plan. She sat on a bench and pulled out her notebook. Her pen hovered above the page. The note, the car, the near accident, Liam's words, the elderly woman at the intersection, the chance encounter that saved her life. Every event, every moment led to this point. She made a decision. She would no longer let life drift by. She would no longer wait for permission or luck. She would take control. Her first step was clear. She would enroll in the writing workshop she had dreamed of for years. She would push herself to create, to express, to live, and she would do it now. A moment of trust. That evening, she called Liam. I I'm going to do it, she said. I'm going to take the workshop. I'm going to try. I can't waste any more time. Liam's voice was calm, yet there was something profound in it. then don't waste this moment. Life doesn't always give second chances. Maya felt a shiver. It wasn't fear, it was a thrill, a surge of purpose. Yes, she whispered, I won't. The first step into a new life. The next morning, Maya packed her bag with a few essentials: notebooks, pens, and a sense of determination she had never carried before. Liam walked with her to the station. The city seemed different now, not threatening, not dull, not lifeless, but vibrant, full of opportunities hidden in corners she had never noticed. This is your moment, he said quietly. Take it. She looked at him. I will. And with that, she stepped onto the train that would take her to the workshop, to the beginning of a life she had almost forgotten she deserved. The city whirred past the window. Trees, streets, buildings blurred. And somewhere inside her, the echo of that morning, the car, the stranger, the warning, the near death, resonated as a reminder. Life doesn't wait. It changes in one moment or in many. And it's up to you to decide what you do next. Part 5, Stepping into the Unknown. The train hummed softly beneath Maya's feet as she stared out the window. The city she had called home for years blurred into streaks of gray and green. Yet, unlike before, the motion didn't make her anxious. It made her feel alive. Every blur, every passing figure reminded her that life was moving, unstoppable. And now she was finally moving with it. She clutched her notebook in her lap, flipping through the pages she had filled in the past week. Lists, ideas, fears, hopes, they all coexisted on those pages. Her handwriting, once hesitant and cramped, now flowed with a sense of urgency as though each word carried the weight of survival and possibility. Somewhere along the journey, Maya realized that the near accident, the strangers, the warnings, they had been her catalyst. She couldn't go back to the woman who walked aimlessly to the bus stop each morning, waiting for life to give her permission. That Maya was gone. The writing workshop. Arriving at the small sunlit workshop felt surreal. The building was unremarkable from the outside, but inside, it buzzed with energy. Writers of all ages and backgrounds moved about, discussing ideas, reading and sharing. The smell of coffee and paper mingled in the air, warm and comforting. Maya took a deep breath. This was her first real step into something new. Something she had wanted for years but had been too afraid to attempt. She had always believed her life was too ordinary, too small for creativity, too mundane for change. But today, fear no longer dictated her actions. She was here, alive, and she intended to make the most of it. She chose a seat near the window and unpacked her notebook. The instructor, a kind woman with silver hair and bright eyes, welcomed her warmly. Welcome. Everyone here is chasing their voice. Your story is yours, and it's never too late to begin. Maya's fingers tightened around her pen. Voice, story, begin. She had been waiting too long, she realized. The past week had already changed her. Now it was time to build on that change. Facing old fears. The first exercise required everyone to write a short story about a turning point in their life. Maya froze, her mind blank. Turning point. A single moment that changed everything. She could feel the weight of that prompt. Her first instinct was to think of excuses. I'm not a writer. My life isn't interesting. What do I even write about? Then she remembered. 8:17 a.m. The car. The woman who pulled her back. Liam. The warning. The note. The fear and clarity. Her hand moved on its own, pen scratching against paper, pouring everything she had felt over the past week. She wrote about near death, about waking up to life, about choosing to live deliberately. By the time she looked up, tears were on her cheeks. Others were quietly writing around her. The room hummed with concentration, but she didn't feel embarrassed. She felt alive. When the instructor asked for volunteers to share, Maya hesitated. Her voice felt fragile, but she remembered something Liam had said. Life doesn't always give second chances. She raised her hand. I almost didn't survive a moment, she began, voice shaky but clear. But it made me realize I've been waiting my whole life for life to happen to me. And now I want to live it on my own terms. The room was quiet. When she finished, the instructor smiled. Thank you for sharing. That's the beginning of every great story. Facing your truth. Maya smiled too. Inside, something was building. A fire she had forgotten existed. This was not just writing, it was reclaiming her life. Reconnecting with purpose. Over the next few weeks, Maya immersed herself in the workshop. Each day, she arrived with a notebook full of ideas and left with stories that reflected not just her thoughts, but her transformation. She wrote about fear, courage, chance, and change. She explored memories she had hidden away, dreams she had abandoned, and hopes she had forgotten. But life outside the workshop wasn't without challenges. The warning note, which she had initially dismissed, remained in her mind, and the sense of being watched lingered. Occasionally, she noticed the same black car parked near her apartment, or someone lingering just long enough for her to catch a glimpse before disappearing. She didn't panic, but she was aware, hyper aware. Liam became her confidant. They met often, sometimes at the park, sometimes in cafes. They shared stories, fears, and sometimes long silences. He didn't push her, and she didn't push him. Their bond was unspoken but strong, built on shared understanding and the acknowledgement that life could change in a moment. And it had for both of them. One afternoon, sitting on a park bench with Liam, Maya admitted, I never realized how much I had been avoiding life. He nodded, looking at the horizon. Most people do, until something forces them to wake up. Maya glanced at him. And what about you? Are you awake? Liam's eyes darkened, thoughtful. I've been awake for a long time, but it's easier when you have someone else awake beside you. Her lips curved into a small, uncertain smile. This felt like more than safety. It felt like understanding. The subtle danger merges. As Maya grew braver, she began to notice small signs that she wasn't entirely free from the past week's warnings. She would see fleeting shadows on her apartment stairwell, hear soft footsteps when she returned from the workshop, or notice a car idling longer than usual at the corner. It was subtle, never aggressive, never direct, but it reminded her that life's moments weren't always about clarity. Some moments were about awareness. She mentioned it to Liam one evening as they walked home from the cafe. I think someone's following me, she said quietly, more out of concern than fear. He immediately tensed. Do you want me to stay with you tonight? Maya shook her head. No, I can't let fear dictate my life. I won't hide. Liam studied her, and she realized he wasn't questioning her bravery. He was admiring it. All right, he said finally, but be careful. Don't ignore instinct. Sometimes it's the only thing that keeps us alive. That night, Maya didn't sleep. Not fully. She lay in bed, listening to the faint hum of the city, her senses heightened. But she didn't feel trapped. She felt alert, ready, alive. Life had changed her, not just emotionally, but fundamentally. She was no longer the same person who had walked toward the bus that morning, numb and drifting. She had been shaken awake, and now she was living deliberately. A moment of decision. A week later, Maya's workshop hosted a small reading event for participants to share their stories publicly. Maya had debated whether to read her story aloud. She knew it was personal, raw, and perhaps too revealing. But she also knew she couldn't hide. Not anymore. Standing in front of the small audience, her notebook clutched tightly, she took a deep breath. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. I want to share a story about a moment, she began, voice quivering at first, then gaining strength. A moment when I almost lost my life, and in that second, I realized I had been ignoring my own. She paused. The room was silent, listening. I met strangers who saved me. I was given a warning, and I had to decide what to do with the life I still had. That moment changed everything. It reminded me that life doesn't wait. It changes in an instant, and it's up to us to take action. When she finished, the room erupted in quiet applause. Some participants approached her afterward, sharing their own experiences and stories of near loss, change, and awakening. For the first time, Maya realized she wasn't alone. Others had faced their moments, and they had survived and thrived. Life moves forward, The following weeks were a whirlwind of small but meaningful changes. Maya began writing daily, submitting short stories to local publications, and reconnecting with friends she had drifted away from. Each step was deliberate, intentional. She even began exploring creative photography, capturing moments of the city she had once ignored. Liam remained by her side, not intrusively, but consistently. Their conversations deepened, their trust strengthened. In a way, he had become her anchor, a reminder that connections could heal as much as they could protect. And then, one evening, as Maya walked through the park, she noticed the black car again, but this time she didn't panic. Instead, she paused and looked at it calmly. The driver's window rolled down slightly, revealing a face she didn't recognize. A small note was slipped under her apartment door later that night. "You're aware, that's good. Keep moving forward, don't let fear control you." Maya smiled faintly. The warning remained, but it no longer held power over her. She had learned that life-changing moments weren't just about danger. They were about awakening, courage, and choice. Embracing change. Sitting at her desk that night, Maya wrote the final line of her story for the workshop submission. Sometimes life changes in one moment, but it's what we do after that moment that defines who we are. She leaned back, breathing deeply. The city hummed outside her window, but inside, a quiet peace settled. Fear still existed, as it always would, but courage had found its way into her heart. Life had given her a warning. Life had given her a gift, and she had chosen to live. Part 6. The Moment That Shapes Us. The days following the reading event were a whirlwind for Maya. Her confidence had grown, and with it, a sense of clarity she hadn't known existed before the accident. She woke up each morning with a purpose that no alarm could dictate, with energy she hadn't realized she was capable of feeling. Yet, the subtle threat of the unknown, those fleeting shadows, the mysterious notes, the car parked across the street, remained. She couldn't ignore them entirely, but she refused to let them dictate her life. Fear was no longer her master. It was just another part of the landscape she had learned to navigate. Liam noticed the change in her. "You're stronger than I thought," he said one afternoon as they walked through the park. Maya smiled. "I had no choice. Life forced me to wake up. I can't go back." He nodded silently. No words could encapsulate the journey they had both been through. The near loss, the awakening, the decision to live deliberately. Sometimes words weren't necessary. Actions, choices, and courage spoke louder. Writing becomes her anchor. Maya's days now revolved around her creative pursuits. She spent mornings writing, afternoons attending workshops or exploring the city for inspiration, and evenings reflecting in her journal. Her stories became more than exercises. They became confessions, declarations, and blueprints for the life she wanted to lead. Each character she created carried a piece of her experience: fear, courage, loss, hope. Each plot she wove reflected her own journey from passivity to action. Writing had become her anchor, tethering her to a new reality where she was no longer drifting. But it was also a lens through which she saw the subtle changes in herself, the quiet bravery, the newfound patience, the willingness to trust. The shadow returns. One evening, Maya returned to her apartment after a long day at the workshop. She pushed open the door and immediately noticed a small envelope lying on the mat. Her pulse quickened, not in fear, but in anticipation. Inside the envelope was a single typed sentence: "You are awake. Now keep moving forward." There was no signature, no name, no indication of who had sent it. Maya's fingers trembled slightly as she held the paper. She turned to Liam, who had accompanied her home. "It's back," she whispered. He studied her carefully. "And?" Maya smiled faintly. "And I don't care anymore. I'm not going to let it scare me. It's just another reminder." Liam exhaled, a mixture of relief and admiration. "Good. That's the Maya I want to see." The note, once ominous, had lost its power. Maya had reclaimed her agency. She would continue to move forward no matter what threats or warnings appeared. A confession. As the weeks passed, Liam and Maya grew closer, not romantically, but in a profound, unspoken understanding. One evening, they sat on a bench in the park, watching the sunset spill pink and gold across the horizon. "I've been meaning to tell you something," Liam said quietly. Maya looked at him, sensing the gravity in his tone. "I never really grieved Mia properly, he admitted. "I carried the guilt, the pain, the regret, but I never allowed myself to truly remember her without fear. Watching you, helping you, it reminded me that life doesn't stop for guilt. It moves forward. And maybe it's time I try to live for her too." Maya reached out, placing a gentle hand over his. "You can honor her by living. That's what she would want." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I think I understand that now, because you reminded me that we can choose to wake up, even after years of sleep." The first step into fear. Maya's newfound courage wasn't limited to writing or reflection. She wanted to test it, to prove to herself that she could confront the fears that had lingered since the accident. The first challenge came in the form of the black car, the symbol of the unknown threat that had followed her for weeks. She waited for Liam one morning. "I want to go outside alone," she said firmly. Liam's eyes widened. "Alone?" "Yes, I need to see this through. I need to feel the fear and move past it." He hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but I'll be nearby." Maya stepped onto the street. The black car was parked, just like before. Her heart beat faster, but she didn't stop. She walked past it slowly, eyes forward, chest lifted. The driver didn't move. No one intervened. She reached the end of the block and turned, walking back with a calmness she hadn't felt in weeks. Fear had existed, but she had chosen courage instead. When she returned, Liam's expression shifted from worry to awe. "You did it," he said simply. Maya smiled, a sense of triumph warming her chest. "I did it." A message in the morning. The next day, Maya found another note, but this one was different. "You're ready." No threat, no warning, just affirmation. It wasn't from the unknown anymore. It felt like a mirror, reflecting her own growth back at her. Maya realized the messages had never been about danger. They had been about awakening, testing, and preparing her to step into life fully aware. She tucked the note into her notebook, a reminder of the journey she had undertaken, from fear to action, from drifting to choosing, from surviving to truly living. The workshop showcase. The workshop held a small showcase for its students. Maya's story, the one she had shared publicly months ago, was selected to be featured. She read it aloud before a small audience of writers, friends, and instructors. Her voice was steady, confident. She spoke of fear, near death, courage, and the small decisions that lead to profound change. Every word resonated with authenticity, carrying the power of lived experience. The applause was heartfelt, but the true triumph was internal. Maya realized she had transformed. Not because of the accident, not because of strangers, and not because of fear, but because she had chosen to act. Life had given her a moment. She had taken it. And now she was shaping her own story, rebuilding connections. Outside the workshop, Maya began reconnecting with the people she had left behind, the friends she had grown distant from, the colleagues she had avoided, the family members she had neglected. Each reconnection was deliberate, sincere, and meaningful. She shared her story, her awakening, and the subtle fear that had followed her. People listened, some teary-eyed, some inspired. And for the first time, Maya felt truly connected, not just to the world, but to herself. Liam remained a quiet presence through all of it, walking beside her, but never overshadowing her. Their bond deepened in silence, trust, and mutual respect. Life moves forward. Weeks turned into months. Maya continued to write, to explore, and to face challenges. Every day she reminded herself of one truth. Life can change in a single moment, but what follows is up to you. The black car never appeared again. The notes stopped. The threat, once looming, had dissipated, replaced by confidence, courage, and awareness. Maya realized that fear and danger were inevitable parts of life, but so were resilience, growth, and choice. Her life wasn't perfect. It wasn't predictable, but it was hers. She had been given a chance, a second chance, and she had decided to embrace it fully. The moment that lasts. One evening, Maya sat on the same park bench where she and Liam had shared quiet confessions. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with gold and pink. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked softly. "Every day," Liam replied. "It changed everything for both of us." Maya nodded. "I was scared, but I learned something important. Life changes in one moment, yeah, but what we do after that moment, that's what defines us." Liam reached out and gently squeezed her hand. "And you've defined yourself beautifully." The city hummed around them. Cars, footsteps, conversations, all blurred into the background. But for Maya, the moment was still. Perfect. Complete. Full of possibility. She breathed deeply, feeling alive, grateful, and ready. Life had given her a moment. She had taken it. And she would continue to take every moment after that, intentionally, courageously, fully. Part 7, Living After the Moment. Maya woke to the soft light of morning filtering through her apartment window. The city outside was slowly coming alive. The distant hum of traffic, the faint laughter of children, the rhythmic footsteps of commuters. But for the first time in months, Maya didn't feel rushed, lost, or afraid. She stretched and sat on the edge of her bed, taking a deep, conscious breath. The events of the past weeks had changed everything. The accident, the near death, Liam's presence, the warnings, the writing workshop. Life had forced her to awaken, and now she had chosen to stay awake. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. A message from Liam. "Coffee at the park? Sunrise view?" Maya smiled. She typed back quickly, "See you there." Moments like these, simple, ordinary, yet profoundly meaningful, felt different now. They weren't ordinary at all. They were deliberate, chosen, full of awareness. The park at sunrise. By the time Maya arrived at the park, the sky was painted with pale gold and pink. Liam was already there, sitting on their favorite bench, a thermos of coffee and two mugs at his side. He looked up and smiled, a quiet, genuine expression that made her chest tighten with familiarity. "Morning," she said softly, settling beside him. "Morning," he replied. They drank in silence for a moment, watching the city wake. Birds flitted across the grass. The breeze carried a hint of winter chill, crisp and refreshing. It was ordinary, and yet it wasn't. Everything they had been through, the accident, the near loss, the subtle dangers, had brought them to this moment. And this moment, they decided, was theirs to claim. Reflecting on change, Maya broke the silence first. "You know, before all of this, I never really thought about what it means to live. I thought life was something that just happened to me and I drifted. I avoided risk, avoided pain, avoided everything that might actually matter." Liam nodded. "I know that feeling. For years, I carried guilt and regret for my sister. It was easier to stay in control of my fear than to face it. Until that moment, and until you reminded me of something I had almost forgotten. Maya turned to him, curious. What's that? That life is fragile, he said quietly. But it's also beautiful. And the moments that scare us the most often show us what we're capable of. She smiled. He had a way of saying simple truths that lingered, that sank into the heart. The choice to live fully. The sun climbed higher, and Maya realized she had a choice she had never truly understood until the accident. She could live cautiously, shrinking from fear and discomfort, or she could embrace life fully, aware of the risks but unwilling to let them dictate her. I've decided, she said, voice firm but calm, that I'm done letting fear control me. I'm going to live deliberately from now on. Every decision, every step, every moment, I want it to be mine. Liam looked at her, eyes reflecting pride and understanding. Then you're already living, he said. The rest will follow. Maya felt a surge of warmth. The words weren't just comforting, they were empowering. She didn't need safety or certainty to feel alive. She had purpose, she had awareness, and she had courage. Facing the past, embracing the present. Though the mysterious notes, the black car, and the lingering fear had once seemed overwhelming, they now felt like distant echoes of the life she had left behind. The city streets, once threatening, now felt familiar and safe. Maya realized something important. The moments that once paralyzed her were now teachers. They had awakened her. They had shown her the value of choice, awareness, and courage. And she had listened. Even Liam's presence, which had initially seemed tied to fear and responsibility, was now a source of balance and trust. Together, they didn't erase the past. They acknowledged it, learned from it, and moved forward. A step toward dreams. The day after her conversation with Liam, Maya attended her first full writing workshop session since the showcase. She walked in with confidence, notebook in hand, ready to share her newest story, a story of courage, awakening, and the power of choice. When she read aloud, her voice resonated with conviction. The story reflected her journey, the accident, the near death, the strangers who helped her, the subtle threats that tested her, and finally, the courage to live deliberately. The audience listened, rapt and silent. When she finished, the applause was soft but sincere. For Maya, it wasn't validation. It was affirmation. Her story wasn't just words on a page, it was proof of transformation. Life beyond fear. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Maya continued to write, explore, and embrace life fully. She traveled for short trips, reconnected with old friends, and even began mentoring younger writers at the workshop. Each day brought new challenges, but she faced them with awareness rather than avoidance. The black car never returned. The note stopped. Fear had not vanished entirely, but it had lost its power. Maya had learned to coexist with it, to recognize it, acknowledge it, and choose action anyway. Even her apartment, once a place of solitude tinged with anxiety, became a sanctuary. She decorated it with photos, books, and small mementos from her journey, reminders that life is both fleeting and precious. The gift of connection. Liam remained a constant presence, not controlling, not overwhelming, but steady. Their bond deepened, built on shared experiences and understanding. They spoke openly about fears, hopes, and dreams, and sometimes simply sat in silence, knowing no words were necessary. One evening, as they watched the sun dip behind the horizon, Liam said quietly, "You've changed so much. I'm proud of you." Maya smiled, feeling the depth of his sincerity. "And you've reminded me what it means to care and to trust. I think I'm finally awake." He nodded. "We both are." The moment that lasted. Maya understood now that life-changing moments didn't always need to be catastrophic. Sometimes they were quiet awakenings, subtle realizations, or encounters that shifted perspective. Sometimes they were frightening. Sometimes they were gentle. But the essence remained the same. A moment has the power to shake us awake. And what we do afterward, that defines who we are. For Maya, the accident had been that moment. It had awakened her, reshaped her, and taught her to live deliberately. But the story didn't end there. Every choice she made, every step she took, became part of a life she had consciously chosen. A life of courage, awareness, and connection. A life fully chosen. Years later, Maya would look back on that morning, the accident, the strangers, the warnings, as the turning point that changed everything. She would remember the fear, the uncertainty, the fragile moments of despair, but she would also remember the courage, the awakening, and the choices that followed. Life had given her a moment. She had taken it, and she had continued to take every moment after that, intentionally, fully, bravely. Sitting in her apartment one quiet evening, Maya opened her notebook and wrote the final line of her own story. Life changes in one moment, but what we do after that moment, that is the story worth living. She set down the pen, took a deep breath, and smiled. Outside, the city continued to hum, alive with possibility, and Maya was finally, undeniably awake.